A sweet young girl lost her parents in a tragic accident, but what happened next will break your heart. She thought she found help in a kind stranger, but she didn't know he was leading her into the arms of a deadly mafia boss. In the quiet town of Ander, lived a happy family of 3: Peter, Ruth, and their little girl Ella. They weren't rich, but they had something better: love. Ella had big dreams, and her future was bright until one tragic moment shattered everything. With her parents gone, she was taken in by a kind-looking doctor, but the home she entered turned into a living nightmare. And just when things couldn't get worse, she was sold, yes, sold to a ruthless mafia boss. What happened next will leave you speechless. Before we dive into today's gripping story, we want to take a moment to appreciate you, our amazing subscribers, new viewers, and the incredible community that makes Moonlight Tales by Samzy so special. Your likes, shares, and thoughtful comments mean the world to us, and we're beyond grateful for your support. If this is your first time here, welcome. You're in for a ride filled with drama, suspense, and unexpected twists. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on our latest stories. And of course, drop a comment below. We love hearing from you, and your support keeps us going. Now, sit back, relax, and let's dive right back into the story, because things are about to get even more intense. In the quiet town of Ander, there lived a little girl named Ella. She was just 17, but her heart was filled with dreams bigger than the sky. Ella was the kind of girl who smiled at butterflies, danced in the rain, and believed every problem could be solved with kindness. And that's because she was raised by the two most loving people in the world: her parents, Peter and Ruth. Peter was a high school teacher who loved books, jokes, and making pancakes every Sunday. He had a deep voice that sounded like music when he read bedtime stories. Ruth, Ella's mom, was a tailor. She worked from home, sewing clothes for the neighborhood, and always made sure Ella had the prettiest dresses, even when money was tight. But more than that, Ruth gave Ella something even better: endless love. Their home wasn't fancy. It was a small brick house with 3 rooms, creaky stairs, and a front porch with 2 wooden chairs. But to Ella, it was a castle. The walls held laughter, the kitchen smelled like cinnamon and fresh bread, and the living room was always filled with the sound of her father's guitar. Every morning, Ella would wake up to the soft sound of birds and the smell of her mother's tea. She'd stretch, jump out of bed, and run into the kitchen to hug her parents. They always greeted her with warm smiles. "Morning, my star," her dad would say, kissing her forehead. "Did you dream of flying again?" her mom would add, handing her a slice of buttered bread. And Ella would nod, giggling. Because she always dreamed big. She wanted to finish school, go to college, become a writer, and travel the world. And every time she shared her dreams, her parents would cheer her on like she was already famous. They made her feel safe, seen, and special. On weekends, they would visit the park near their home. Peter would teach Ella how to play chess while Ruth laid out a blanket and set up snacks. Sometimes, they would all lie down, staring at the sky, making up stories about the clouds. One looked like a horse. Another, like a dragon. And Ella would laugh until her cheeks hurt. At night, after dinner, they would sit by the fireplace. Peter would read out loud while Ruth mended clothes beside him. Ella would listen closely, her head resting on her mother's lap, her eyes sparkling with wonder. "You know what I think?" Peter said one evening, as he closed the book. "Ella's going to be the brightest star this town has ever seen." Ruth smiled, stroking her daughter's hair. "She already is." Ella blushed. "Stop it, you too." But deep down, her heart was full. Because she believed them. She believed that no matter what, she could become anything as long as they were by her side. Then came the day everything changed. But for now, in that little house in Ander, everything was perfect. The wind was gentle, the sun was warm, and love was everywhere. Ella had no idea how lucky she was because she had never known pain, loss, or betrayal. All she knew was joy. And that joy lived in every hug, every meal they shared, every bedtime kiss. She was wrapped in love. Protected. Cherished. Her parents weren't rich, but to Ella, they gave her the most precious thing in the world, a family that made her feel like she mattered. That was Ella's life. Before the storm. Before the tears. Before the day her world fell apart. It was a quiet Sunday morning in the little town of Ander. The birds were singing, the sun was shining, and the sweet smell of Mama Ruth's pancakes filled the air. In a small yellow house on the corner of Maple Street, a girl named Ella sat nervously by the dining table. She kept glancing at her phone, waiting for a message that could change her life forever. Ella was only 17, but she had always been a dreamer. She loved reading books, solving puzzles, and helping others. Her biggest dream was to go to college and become a teacher. Not just any teacher, but the kind that made kids feel smart, seen, and safe. And today, she was waiting to hear from the best school. She had applied to Landmark College. Her father, Peter, walked in with his usual bright smile. He was a tall, gentle man who always wore his old blue cap and smelled like fresh soap and hard work. "Any word yet, Pumpkin?" he asked, pouring himself a cup of coffee. Ella shook her head. "Not yet, Papa. Maybe they're still sending the emails." Mama Ruth came out of the kitchen, holding a plate of pancakes. Her eyes sparkled like sunlight through water. "Don't worry, baby. If it's meant to be, it'll come. You've worked so hard. God sees you." Ella smiled softly and whispered, "I hope so, Mama." The family sat down together, holding hands to pray before eating. Just as Ella took her first bite, her phone buzzed on the table. She froze. Her heart jumped. Peter looked at her and raised his eyebrows. That might be it. Ella slowly reached for her phone. Her hands were shaking. She opened the message. Her eyes scanned the screen, and suddenly, she gasped. "Oh my God! I got in! I got in," she shouted, jumping out of her seat. Peter nearly dropped his coffee. "You what?" "I got into Landmark College." There was a beat of silence. Then Ruth screamed with joy and hugged her daughter tight, pancakes still in her hands. Peter stood up, wiping his eyes, laughing and crying at the same time. "My girl! My smart, beautiful Ella," he said, lifting her up in a bear hug. Tears rolled down Ella's cheeks. "They gave me a scholarship, too. It's not full, but it covers most of the tuition. I can go, Papa. I can really go." Ruth cupped Ella's face with her warm hands. "This is the beginning of your future, baby. We're so proud of you. So proud." Peter nodded, still smiling through tears. "Whatever we need to do, we'll do it. We'll make it work. You're going to that college." They danced around the living room like kids, holding hands, laughing. It wasn't a big house, and they didn't have much money, but in that moment, they were the richest people in the world. Peter pulled out his old radio and turned on Ella's favorite song. He grabbed Ruth's hand, and the two of them started dancing like it was their wedding day all over again. Ella clapped and giggled, watching her parents act silly. She felt something deep in her heart, pure happiness. They spent the rest of the day celebrating. Ruth made Ella's favorite meal, jollof rice and fried chicken. Peter took out a notebook and began writing a list of everything they'd need to buy for college: notebooks, clothes, a small suitcase. They had no idea how they'd pay for all of it, but it didn't matter. They believed things would work out. Later that night, Ella sat on the porch, watching the stars. Her heart was full. Her dreams were coming true. She didn't know what the future held, but she felt ready. She had her parents. She had love. And now, she had hope. Little did she know, everything was about to change. But for that one day, joy lit up their small house like sunshine, and the sound of laughter filled every corner. The day started just like any other. The sun peeked through the windows of the little blue house where Ella lived with her parents, Peter and Ruth. Birds sang cheerfully, and a warm breeze swept across the small town of Ander. It was a beautiful morning, too beautiful for anyone to guess that something terrible was about to happen. Inside the house, laughter filled the air. Ella had just received her admission letter to Landmark College, and Peter lifted her up, twirling her in joy while Ruth clapped and cried happy tears. They were proud of their daughter. She had worked hard, and now she was going to one of the best colleges in the country. It was a dream come true. Later that morning, they all got into their old blue car to celebrate. They were headed to Ella's favorite place, a little ice cream shop near the riverside. Ruth sat in the passenger seat, humming her favorite song, while Peter drove with a big smile on his face. Ella sat in the back seat, holding her admission letter tightly against her chest, still beaming with excitement. They had no idea that just a few miles ahead, a large truck was speeding down the wrong lane. Peter noticed it too late. The truck came out of nowhere, swerving dangerously across the road. Peter tried to steer away. He turned the wheel sharply to the right, but it wasn't enough. The truck slammed into them with a terrible crash. Glass shattered. Metal bent. Tires screeched. And then, silence. The world went dark. When Ella opened her eyes, she couldn't breathe at first. Everything was upside down. The car was lying on its side, and smoke was rising from the engine. Her head hurt, and her arms were bruised, but she was alive. Barely. She looked around, her heart pounding. "Mom? Dad?" she whispered. No answer. She tried to move, pain shooting through her body. Her seatbelt had kept her from flying out, but it was now digging into her skin. With shaky hands, she unbuckled herself and crawled toward the front seat. What she saw made her freeze. Her father's head rested against the steering wheel. Blood trickled down his forehead. He wasn't moving. Her mother was slumped over, her hands still clutching the edge of her seat. Her eyes were closed. Her breathing was slow, very slow. Tears filled Ella's eyes. "Mom! Dad! Please wake up," she cried, her voice breaking. Someone must have heard her, because a few minutes later, flashing red and blue lights surrounded them. Firefighters broke the windows and pulled her out first. She kept screaming for her parents, trying to go back, but the medics held her back gently. The room was cold. Too cold. Ella lay on the small hospital bed, her head wrapped in white bandages, her arm in a sling. The light above her flickered now and then, making her blink slowly, like waking up from a long, confusing dream. Her body ached, but it wasn't the pain in her bones that hurt the most. It was the silence. She turned her head slowly. "Mom," she whispered. "Dad." But no one answered. A tall man in a white coat stepped in quietly. He looked kind, with tired eyes and gray hair. It was Dr. Amos. He had been watching over Ella since the accident. Ella tried to sit up, but she winced. "Where's my mom? And my dad?" "They were with me, in the car." Dr. Amos sat down beside her. He didn't answer right away. His hands were shaking slightly as he pulled the chair closer. He reached for Ella's hand and held it gently. "Ella," he said softly. "Do you remember what happened?" She blinked again. Her lips trembled. We were on the road. Daddy was driving fast because I was late for my entrance exam. There was a truck. I heard a crash, and then everything went black. Dr. Amos nodded slowly. Yes, sweetheart. There was a very bad accident. Ella looked up at him with wide, frightened eyes. But my mom and dad, they're okay, right? They're in another room? They have to be okay. The doctor swallowed hard. He didn't know how to say it. How do you tell a girl who still had her whole life ahead of her that the two people she loved most in the world were gone? He squeezed her hand tighter. Ella, he whispered, I'm so sorry. Your parents didn't make it. They died at the scene. The room froze. For a moment, Ella just stared at him, confused. She didn't understand the words. It was like they were in a different language. No, she said slowly, shaking her head. No, that can't be right. Maybe you're mistaken. Maybe they're hurt like me, but alive. Please, check again. Tears welled up in her eyes as she tried to rise, panic flooding her body. I want to see them. Please, take me to them. Dr. Amos gently pushed her back down. Ella, please. You're not strong enough. And they're not here anymore. No, she cried, her voice rising. You're lying. My mom promised she would be there when I got into college. She promised. Her whole body shook. Tears poured down her cheeks as she cried out for her parents over and over. Daddy. Mommy. Please come back. I need you. I need you. Her sobs echoed through the quiet hospital room, like the cry of a heart that had just been shattered. Dr. Amos sat with her, tears filling his own eyes, but he didn't speak. There was nothing to say. No words could fix this. Ella curled into herself, wrapping her good arm around her stomach like she was trying to hold herself together. But inside, she felt like everything was falling apart. She whispered their names over and over, like a prayer, hoping maybe if she said them enough, they'd walk through the door. But no one came. Later that evening, Dr. Amos came back into the room with a small box. Inside were Ella's mother's scarf, her father's wristwatch, and a photo of the three of them together smiling in front of their small house. Ella reached into the box with shaking hands. She held the photo close to her chest and cried again, this time in silence. The people in the picture looked so happy. So full of life. It didn't make sense. How could two people go from being everything to nothing? I miss them already, she whispered. Dr. Amos sat down again beside her and placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. I know, Ella. I know. And in that quiet hospital room, a girl's whole world ended, and a new one cold, cruel, and unknown began. It was a cold, quiet morning. The sky was gray, and the wind blew gently through the trees. The leaves on the ground didn't dance like they used to. Even the birds seemed too sad to sing. Ella stood by two fresh graves, her tiny hands clutching a small bunch of white flowers. Her shoes were muddy, and her little black dress hung loosely around her thin frame. She was only 16, but she looked much younger now, small, fragile, and completely alone. The names on the gravestones read, Peter and Ruth Jameson. Beloved parents, forever missed. Ella's lips trembled as she knelt down. She placed one flower on each grave, then pressed her hands together, trying hard not to cry. But her tears didn't listen. They rolled down her cheeks like raindrops that refused to stop. I miss you so much, Mommy, she whispered, her voice cracking. Daddy. I don't know what to do. Why did you leave me? She waited, as if their voices would come floating up from the soil. As if maybe, just maybe, she would hear her father's laughter one more time or feel her mother's warm hands wiping her tears. But the graves were silent. The wind just blew, soft and cold. Dr. Amos stood a few steps behind her. He held a black umbrella over her head, shielding her from the light drizzle that had just begun. He didn't say anything. He knew there were no words that could fix this moment. Ella touched the dirt with her fingers. It was still fresh. She remembered the day the accident happened. 1 second they were smiling in the car, talking about her first day at college. The next second, she heard loud screeches, glass shattering, and then darkness. She woke up in the hospital. Her arms were bruised. Her forehead was stitched. But the pain in her body was nothing compared to the pain in her heart. "Why didn't you take me too?" she asked softly, tears falling faster now. "I would have come with you. I would have held your hands and never let go." The cemetery was quiet. Just her and the graves. Just her and the memories. She closed her eyes and saw her mother's smile, the one she always gave when Ella did well in school. She saw her father's proud face the day she got into Landmark College. She remembered how they danced in the living room, singing along to old songs, laughing until their stomachs hurt. All gone now. Her hands clutched the edge of the gravestone. "Who'll love me now? Who'll take care of me?" she whispered. "I don't want to live with strangers. I want to come home. I want to go back." Dr. Amos gently stepped forward. "Ella," he said in a quiet voice. "It's time." But Ella didn't move. She stayed there, crying softly, her heart breaking into pieces she couldn't even count. The rain got heavier, but she didn't care. The mud got on her knees, but she didn't notice. She just sat there, lost in a world where her parents were still alive. Dr. Amos sighed and knelt beside her. "I promise I'll look after you," he said gently. "I know I'm not them, but I won't let anything happen to you." Ella looked at him, her eyes swollen and red. For a second, she wanted to believe him. For a second, she wanted to think she could still be safe. But something in her heart told her the worst had only just begun. She gave the graves one last look. "I love you," she whispered. "Please don't forget me." Then, slowly, she stood up. Dr. Amos took her hand and led her away. The little girl who once had a bright future now walked into the unknown, her eyes filled with tears, her heart filled with sorrow, and her soul already tired of life. The cemetery faded behind her. But the pain? The pain walked with her. Forever.